Good morning. Today we look at Genesis 46 through 48. And, I commented the other day about how it's Jacob or Israel, and God had named him Israel, but so often we hear him called Jacob. Well, chapter 46 begins with when Israel went down to the land and set out on his journey. He sets out on his journey, Israel does, with all of his family and their flocks and their herds of sheep and cattle. And as they were going on the way during the night, he has a visit from God. And God says, Jacob, Jacob. So here we go, Israel, Jacob, Jacob. And then, but the promise from God is, I am with you. Don't be afraid to go to Egypt, because I am with you. I will make you a great nation. And this calling him by one name or by another name, I think about so many people in our area that have nicknames, and they get to be known so much by their nickname that you're not sure what their real name is, even sometimes. But anyway, Israel, Jacob, they are one and the same person, even though sometimes I get confused and well, who is who here? But same person. But anyway, they're going down to Egypt because Joseph, Israel's son, is there and has made up and stored provisions during those good years, and with the story that goes on, we know they're coming. And then we get to verse 8 of chapter 46. It gives us the list of all of Israel's children, grandchildren, and those that go along. And then in verse 26, I think it is, that we're told that altogether there were 66 people that went with Israel to this land of Egypt, to Goshen, where they're going. And then counting Joseph and his wife and 2 sons was 70 people. And you think about it, with 12 sons, including Joseph, of course. In a way, it's surprising it's not more than the number 70. And whether the number was exact, I didn't count the people that were listed in there, but I just trust that that's right. But the number 70, just like the number 7, signifies completeness. And so the whole of Israel's offspring went, the whole family went down there. And as they're getting closer, Israel sends Judah, one of the sons, to tell Joseph, we're getting close. And Joseph gets on his chariot and comes to meet his father. And he, wraps him in this big bear hug. And it says, went to his shoulder, he presented himself, fell on his neck, and wept on his neck a good while. You can just see that reunion, the joyous reunion of Joseph, but also Israel, and the emotion that would be there for Israel. The word that his son Joseph was alive, was one thing, but then to see him. And Israel comments on that. I never thought I would ever see you again. And this is the ultimate joy of my life. And we can understand that. The joy of seeing someone you haven't seen for a long time, especially someone that has been estranged from you, or like here, they thought was dead. And Joseph tells his brothers that when you come to Pharaoh, I'm going to introduce you to Pharaoh, and I'm going to tell him that my father and my brothers have come, and he will ask, well, what is your occupation? Tell him that we are shepherds, and because shepherds weren't very highly thought of in Egypt. I don't know why that would be, because they had to have sheep, they had to have hogs, but they had cattle. That was the bigger thing, and we know from some of the history here of the United States and the settling of the lands that as some of the sheep farmers came into the cattle country, there were a lot of animosity and a lot of killings and just stuff that went on. But anyway, so Pharaoh is finds out that, yeah, they're shepherds, keepers of the flock. And he says, well, yeah, go settle in the land of Goshen. And it's good land. Pharaoh says, your father and your brothers have come. The land of Egypt is before you. Settle them in the best part of the land. So here is still some of the favoritism to Joseph, the reward for doing a good job. Settle him in the best land. Treats him really well. And then in verse 7 is where Joseph brings his father, and Israel says, here again is Jacob says to Pharaoh, then my years are 130, and this is, and then it says that Jacob blesses Pharaoh. And you think that's kind of the wrong way around, that Jacob, this Israelite, Israel, it would bless Pharaoh. But, it's giving thanks. And he goes out and settles in the land, and the famine is continuing, the drought is continuing, and people have spent all of their money, and now they come looking for more grain to keep things going on, and they say we have no money. So soon all of the livestock is turned over to become property of Pharaoh, and then they come again, with their livestock is gone, they have no money, but they need food for themselves, and they trade their land. And so all of the land becomes property of Pharaoh as well. And of course then, Joseph is in charge of all of this land and everything. So like verse 20 of chapter 47 says, Joseph bought all of the land of Egypt. All of the Egyptians sold their fields because the famine was so great, and the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he made slaves of them. And we know that, so the Egyptian people were slaves of the government as well. And we know that, the Israelites are going to become slaves of the Egyptians in time, but I shouldn't get ahead of ourselves that way, should I? But in verse 27, Israel had settled. Excuse me. They were fruitful, they multiplied, and it says then that Jacob lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. So his life was 147 years old, and he knew the end of his time was coming. So he called his sons and made Joseph especially promise to him that he, Israel, wouldn't be buried in the land of Egypt, but that he would be taken back. He says, I want to lie down with my ancestors, carry me out of Egypt and bury me in my ancestors' burial place. And Joseph promises that to his father. And then this chapter 48 seems a little strange because, Joseph brings his sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, to his father. And Jacob, Israel, says, oh, now that I have met, my grandsons, I'm going to make them mine. He says, they're no longer your sons, but they're my sons. And the welcoming him to family. But it's just, the odd part to me is that it seems that certainly he would have met those grandsons previous to sometime during that 17 years. And so maybe this is a flashback. Can't tell you that for sure. But as he's blessing these two boys, Joseph brings them forward, and Jacob crosses his hands, Israel crosses his hands, and the younger son gets the better or more important blessing, the right hand blessing. And Joseph tries to correct that, but his father says, both of your sons will get blessings, but your younger son will be a greater nation. Not that there will be anything, of the other, but so Israel knows what's going to happen. And as his blessing is, the God before my ancestors Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd, the God, the angel who redeemed me. Bless these boys and let them, my name, and let in them my name be perpetuated, so that, his name of Israel will live on. And so the blessing comes to Jacob's sons and to all of, to Joseph's sons and to all of Jacob, Israel's family in that way. And so this is leading now from this blessing of these two boys into the blessing of the rest of them, which we will get back into tomorrow.